with each other. So friends, we have actually left with the last topic that we have covered through the videos, the screencast videos. It was the implicit human computer interaction in a wearable computing devices. So we have covered till that point. Today, I'm going to talk about the human-centered design. Okay. So we'll just compare the human-centered design with the conventional system design. So conventional system design, basically it focuses on designing the core of the system to support the sets of service, actions or functions in order to handle the service request of the users. Now, in contrast to this conventional system design, the human-centered design, which is also called as the user-centered design, which focuses on human interaction with the user interface. So for many users, the user interface, it represents the product, whereas the conventional system design, or if I compare this human-centered design with the conventional system design, so this conventional system design, it mostly involves the user maybe at the beginning or at the end of the development life cycle. So that's the basic difference between the conventional system and a human-centered design. So in human-centered design, the user is involved throughout the entire design life cycle, and that is basically the basic difference between the conventional system design and the human-centered design. Well, I'll go to the next slide. Now we'll try to compare this human-centered design life cycle with the conventional design life cycle, okay, or the functional system design. On the left of this figure, the left side figure is the conventional design and the right side is the human-centered design. Now, the basic phases of development of user-centered interactive system design are similar to those used in the conventional functional system design. So this development cycle of conventional system design, it comprises the 4 phases of development. We know that the first phase is the requirement gathering and analysis. Second phase is where we can do the modeling and design. In third phase, we perform the implementation, and finally the testing, that nothing but the validating. Now, interaction design or user-centered design is, if you compare this with the conventional system design, it is closest to the prototype cycle model. So it's basically a cycle, it's a prototype model. Now, human-centered design processes, which specifies basically the 4 design principles. So what are these 4 design principles that we are going to learn now? So the first design principle says that the active involvement of user and the clear understanding of user's task or requirement. The second design principle says that an appropriate allocation of function between the user and the technology based upon the relative competencies of your technology that you are using and the competency of your user or the humans. The third design principle, the human-centered design principle, it says that the multiple iterations are required because designs hardly ever get it right at the first time, and that's the reason we need to perform a multiple rounds of iterations of our design so that at the end we get the furnished human-centered design. And the fourth design principle says that we need to keep in mind that we have to use a multidisciplinary approach in designing the human-centered design. Okay, now if I talk about this life cycle, which is shown on the right part of this right figure of this slide. Now the first activity in this life cycle is defining the context of use. So how to define the context of use? So defining the context of use in terms of scenarios, use cases, task model, ICT infrastructure, physical environment, and the social environment context. The second activity in this cycle is nothing but the stakeholder and the organizational requirement which needs to be specified. The third activity in this cycle is where the designer should suggest the alternatives to identify the better alternatives rather than sticking with the current familiar design. So How these alternatives are generated? So these alternatives are generated through the research and synthesis, creativity, and through looking at the similar products for the inspiration purpose. So design needs to be validated against the user requirement, and you can find that this is the fourth activity, where the design that we have chosen from the set of alternative design, that design needs to be validated against the user's requirement. So that's about the human-centered design lifecycle. So these are the four activities of the human-centered design lifecycle, and we have seen the four design principles of human-centered design. In the next slide, in this slide, we are going to talk about, we will probably discuss essentially on the methods to acquire the user input and to build the user model. Okay, so basically there are 4 points in this topic where we are going to see that how the user's input is acquired in a natural setting and a control setting. What are the different techniques used to acquire the user input? So typically here it is mentioned that there are two types of techniques used in order to acquire the input from the user. So these are nothing but the direct interaction and indirect interaction. So the basic technique used to acquire the user input for the evaluation of designs can also be used throughout the human-centered design lifecycle from the requirement gathering. So it helps to model the user's behavior. So the selection of appropriate user techniques will depend on the variety of factors, such as different types of environment requirement, cost and time constraint, the availability of different type of users to acquire the input. So there are two basic type of techniques used to gather the input depending on in which type of human environment the user input is acquired. So there are, as I mentioned on this slide, there are typically two different techniques, that is natural setting and a control setting. So in first one, that is in natural setting, it is basically ethnographic studies in which the feedback from the user can be acquired. Okay, and that's what a natural setting. So there is the user, or you can say that uh, the system do not have any control over the user's input or the user's action. Now in control setting, often in a usability lab where the cameras and the input filters can observe what users do and what they input to a system. So based on this, there are two basic type of evaluation with respect to whether or not direct interaction or indirect interaction with the user is used, and later on it can be combined. So these are the two types, that is two types of evaluation: direct interaction and indirect interaction. So first we'll talk about the indirect interaction. For example, the use of tagging technique that enables us to track the humans. It may be the physical asset, it may be the physical property, it may be the animal in the zoo, it may be the animal in the forest area. So that's the best example of indirect interaction. Okay, now we'll see the direct interaction techniques. So direct interaction techniques, they are typically, there are, it is categorized as the questionnaires, interviews, inspections, focus group, and the cognitive walkthrough. Now, talking about the first one, there are several types of questionnaires and interview. So interviews are further categorized as unstructured interviews, structured interviews, and semi-structured interviews. So we'll just talk about this unstructured and structured. So unstructured interviews are not directly directed by the script. So scripts are not used in unstructured interviews. So this is the way to get the informal feedback from the user. Sometimes this is also called as quick and dirty feedback. In structured interviews, they are tightly scripted, and they are often uses the questionnaires. So questionnaires are prepared and they will be given to the user in order to get the reviews, the users review. Okay. Then next is the focus group, or you can, the third one is the inspection. So inspection or heuristic evaluation, in this technique, expert inspect the user interface and document how a set of usability heuristic approach can be applied when carrying out the pre-specified user's task. So that's nothing but the inspection. It is sometimes also called as a heuristic evaluation. In focus group, it is also referred as the group interviews, which are groups guided by an interviewer. So interviewer facilitates the group discussion on a specified set of topics. So that is the focus group. And the last technique in the direct interaction is the cognitive walkthrough. So this is an alternative approach to the inspection technique, in which the designers and expert evaluators, as the individual or the group, walk through the sequence of tasks and document whether or not user will know how to achieve this task and what actions are performed by the user in order to uh, get the response from the system. Well, so we have just mentioned that, so using this, after acquiring this users input, using this different techniques, may be a natural setting, control setting, may be direct interaction, may be indirect interaction. So the next task is we have to build a user model. So there are typically two types of models developed. So one is the predictive model and other is the quantitative model. So predictive model, it provides the way of soliciting the user's feedback about the product or design without necessarily directly involving the user. So in predictive modeling, the user's direct involvement is not there in building the user model. But contrary, we can say that in quantitative model, the user's interaction sequence, such as clicking keys, moving the mouse pointer, thinking and moving between the mouse and the keyboard. Now, this can be used to calculate the task efficiency, such as how long it takes to complete the task, and to quantitatively compare the user's interaction is the most efficient method in this quantitative modeling. Okay, now we'll see the next subtopic in this human-centered design, that is defining the virtual and the physical environment use context. So if you want to understand this topic, we have to understand this topic by using the PBM scenario. So what is the PBM scenario? This is basically a PBM scenario. So in this PBM scenario, the virtual computing, which is you can see that shown on this here at this point. I can use the spotlight to show you. So this is the point. Okay, so this is the virtual computing actually. So the virtual computing or the ICT context has an internal or external context. Okay, so we'll see now what is the internal context and external context. So it is clearly mentioned this is external and this is internal context to this virtual computing. So the internal use, so this internal use, it concerns the internal storage capacity for playback and review of recording. Whereas this external ICT context, it requires the you can say that audio visual recorder, which is typically called as the cameras, um, to share the content with the external system in order to view it, in order to archive it, or in order to retrieve the recordings. So the physical environment, which is at the bottom of this figure, this physical environment context, it concerns the physical environment operating conditions for the system. Okay. Now we'll see what is the how we can define the human environment use context and its requirement. Okay, so human environment context, it concerns just a second. So I'll just clear all the drawings and I can go back. Okay, just give me a second, friends, just to. Okay. Uh, just a second. Okay, I'll just go back and okay, great. So users characteristic, that is specifically a part of human environment use context and requirement. Okay, so the human environment uh, context, it concerns with the user's characteristics, it concerns with the social context and the usability context of user. So the meaning of user characteristics, it can be demonstrated with this PBM scenario, where the users need to be able to safely hold the cameras, to be able to intentionally operate the basic features of camera and etc. So this can be a simple demonstration of a user's characteristics, right? Another social context is that the social context in this PBM scenario is that a configuration or a set of user preferences for the use of device or the service, which is referred as the user's profile, right? So in many current devices, such users profiles are device specific and they are localized within the device. Sometimes it is useful to be able to define and share the profiles across the multiple applications and device. However, currently shareable cross application user profiles are not supported in the majority of consumer devices. So in this PBM scenario, the ICT devices are used in personal, social and public spaces. The camera may signal to the people in the scene that is about to take a photograph so that the people can pose for the photograph. However, it may signal that the recording is complete. So the camera could be designed as a hidden recorder, okay, in order to capture the recordings of the people, to capture their natural pose. So the human context of use may also define how the user is instructed and trained to operate the device and to resolve the operating problems. Now, the next topic in this PBM scenario is the interaction design. So interaction design, it particularly focuses on designing the system to be usable by the intended users. So it focuses on design of user interface part of the system. So interaction design has the two main differences with the conventional system design. The first, several alternative prototype design needs to be produced, and the second, there may be some formal evaluation of this prototype design that we have to choose from the set of designs. So the overall design of user interface, it generally results into simpler and the higher level view of the system, which is referred to as the user interface conceptual model, and that is what our next topic of discussion. So now we are going to we are going to discuss that how this conceptual model and the mental models are built with the human interaction. Okay. So it seems very challenging for the people to learn to operate and understand uh, tens or thousands of such devices which are having varying degrees of complexities, right? So this complexity of interacting with the new machines is reduced because through the experience of people which tend to build up the mental model that predicts basically the behavior of different types of objects in your system and create a base on their interaction of familiar and the unfamiliar objects within your system. So the user's mental model develops when a person starts to learn how to use a system that is unfamiliar to them. Once user becomes familiar with the system operations, the mental model is not used and the habits of users are developed that actually what I mean to say that actually link the user's action to the sensory devices, input devices, without any user's involvement. So the complexity of interacting with this new system is also reduced, as it provides the strong clues on how to operate themselves. So these are referred as the affordance, which was actually, this concept was introduced by the Norman, the famous scientist in a ubiquitous computing, and it was introduced in 1998. So, for example, a camera lens has a rotatable ring to adjust the degree of zoom. So that is the affordance provided to the interaction design. The usability of affordance is to an extent based upon experience, is subjective and cultural. Imagine that you are in a foreign country and you need to access some machine which has a slot as a input. Now it may be obvious what is to be inserted into the slot. For example, you may insert a token which is proprietary to that machine, or you may or some denomination of local currency. So unless the slot is labeled unambiguously in a language which is understandable to the user, it is not useful. This user interface is not useful. So some affordance which are mechanical, or you can call it as electromechanical, which may invite the trial and error interaction, but this may permanently damage the device, or that may be dangerous in some cases. So designers could also aim to design the interactive systems to support the appropriate conceptual model. A conceptual model is what? A conceptual model is basically, it is the abstraction of a system or a service at a level that is understandable to the user and matches the user's mental model of how he or she thinks. So a common way to define a conceptual model in a human computer interface specifically is to link the virtual objects or the widgets of your systems into a related physical world object. So that is the better way to achieve the conceptual model. For example, a small example we can discuss: a bin placed on the virtual desktop, it makes it easier to discard the information. However, a bin is not normally placed on a physical desktop in the physical world environment. Also, it is difficult to mimic the continuity of analog world in the digital world. That's impossible, and that is one of the drawback of this is one of the challenge when you are creating a human-centered design for any ubiquitous application. So usability is reduced when a system projects a conceptual model from which a user cannot build a mental model that they understand. For example, when system fails, how a low-level error code message, and that low-level error code message may be presented that are not meaningful to the developer of the system, but not to the user. Okay, so the error code which is displayed by your design, that may be useful for the developer, but it may not be useful for the end user of your system. So there is not necessarily any single generic conceptual model that will fit all the applications. So this is you can say that a truth that we have to accept. Okay, there won't be a single conceptual model that will fit all the users requirement. Now we will come to an end of this session with the last topic, that is evaluation. So evaluation of the completed product, okay, is very important. So product, when I say here, I mean to say that the evaluation of the product design that you have chosen from the alternative design. So we have mentioned in the beginning that we have to, the designers of the human-centered design, they have to produce, they have to generate a set of design, a set of alternative designs, and all this design, they needs to be evaluated. So we are coming to that point. So what this evaluation done? Evaluation of design. So evaluation of design, it enables the uh, designer, or it enables the problem to be fixed before a product is shipped. It enables the developer to focus on a real problem. So there must be some evidence from the use of that design, not on the problem that they perceive or imagine, but which may never arises. Okay, so friends, this evaluation point is, we have covered this, we have already learned this point in the conventional system design, the way we test the software products at the end. Okay, at the end of your design life cycle, right? We gather the requirement, we model it, we design it, we implement it, and then finally we test it. So testing is what? That is nothing but a validation. That is typically called as the evaluation. So as we evaluate the product, so the same way we have to evaluate the design that we have produced, or the alternative design that we have produced. So evaluation of completed product, it is sometimes called as the summative evaluation, and it can be used to verify and demonstrate that the system complies with the regulatory requirements, such as the safety and the physical environment requirement. So evaluation, it needs to be planned, and the selection of the different types of users doing the evaluation needs. So the method of acquiring user input for evaluation, it can be based upon those used for the user requirement gathering. So this is all about from my end. I hope if you have any problem, I have kept the 5 minutes. The forum is open for the discussion. You can post your problem in the chat room. Are you getting my voice?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Darshan, is there any question?
Sir,
Varad?
no, sir.
Yeah, hello.
Varad, is there any
Sir, it was
question?
no, sir, but the sound was not so clear, so I didn't get most of the points.
Okay. Now is it audible?
Yes, sir. Now it is perfect.
Okay. Unfortunately, guys, my system's volume was very low. I'm extremely sorry. We have still 10 minutes. Varad, please let me know which point you do not understood. I'll just go through the slides. So whether you
Okay.
whether you don't understood the conceptual model, mental model, affordance, interaction design, what?
Sir, can you just reverse back to the slide so I can tell?
Okay, okay, okay. I'll just come back to the slide. Okay, this is human-centered design. This is the conventional, which I talked about, the conventional system and the human-centered design, the difference. Then we have seen this PVM scenario. So PVM scenario is what?
Yes.
It is basically physical, virtual, and human interaction model. That is PVM
Okay.
stands for physical virtual model for human-centered design.
Yes.
Then we have seen the internal context, external context. This is PVM scenario. Sorry, this earlier slide, it was actually the conventional system design, the design life cycle of conventional system design, and the life cycle of human-centered design. This is actually the PVM scenario which I talked about. Then I
Okay.
talked about the interaction design. Then these are the points in the interaction design: conceptual model, mental model, and affordance. And then we have seen the evaluation. So this is what all about the presentation.
Yes.
So which point you want to, have you seen this direct and indirect interaction techniques? I mean, do you understood this? What are the different methods to acquire the user input and to build the user's model?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Darshan. So Varad, please let me know if you have any problem in
I'll go
understanding.
through the PPT if you share, so I'll let you know after going through it.
Okay. Friends, this is actually the first time we are actually interacting virtually. So now I understood this entire Zoom software. So probably on Monday we'll come back and I will, uh, we are familiar with this system. So now the Monday session will be more interactive, and we will try to resolve all these technical difficulties. Saili, is there any problem? Darshan? A lot of students, they are in queue. I'm seeing Rohit. Rohit, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Varad?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I know who is this Galaxy. Nice to see you, friends, after a long time.
Yes, sir.
It's really pleasure that we all are talking in this. And remember one thing, I have uploaded the quiz on the Moodle of Ubiquitous Computing course. So try to use it, solve those.
Okay.
Uh, it's better to engage yourself in this pandemic situation. Komal, am I audible? Komal Pagere?
Yes, yes, sir.
Komal, you joined late actually, because I started my presentation and a lot of students, they were in queue. Still, I found some students, they are in queue. I need to admit all these people. So better in the Mondays.
Add
Okay, I'll keep one more session on Monday. So you join before we start the lecture. Okay, I kept this feature on. You can the audience of this meeting, they can join before the host, so that I can admit you in this meeting. Okay, guys,
Yes,
please
sir.
let me know.
Okay, sir.
Is there anything, Darshan? Neha?
Yes, sir.
Neha, is there any problem? Is there any doubt in the?
No, sir.
No, absolutely. So friends,
Yes,
so
sir.
please promise
Kindly
me.
share the PPTs with us.
For sure, for sure, for sure. Yes, I will definitely share this PPT. And I hope all of you will join the Monday session. Guys, you tell me.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You tell me which time is preferable for you all. Mahendra.
So this time is perfect.
Yes.
No, sir. 11 a.m.
Okay, so 10 to 11, it's perfect for all.
Sir,
Yes,
11. Can we go
Sir.
to 11 to 12?
Okay, sure. I don't have any problem. For the entire day, I'm free. Okay, you do one thing, friends. You discuss amongst yourself in your groups, and please share me the time. Okay, anybody can come forward voluntarily. You take the initiative, open the discussion forum, decide the time, and please convey it to me so that the Monday's meeting will be scheduled. Thank you, guys.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
For the patience listening. I
Thank you, sir.
enjoy this, and thanks a lot. Be safe and take care. Take care of your family, friend, and your step brothers. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I will.
Thank you, sir. Bye.